business or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, brought to you by Trulytics, the one and only comprehensive advisor transition management platform. This week on the show, I have Lacy Garcia, the founder and CEO of Willow, with me to discuss an urgent need in the wealth management industry: getting better at serving women investors. The need is so urgent that Lacy and her team at Willow have created an entire business out of helping financial advisors improve their ability to serve women investors more effectively. It may sound silly on the surface that so much attention needs to be paid to serving clients based on their gender, but when you consider some of the statistics that we are seeing, such as the fact that 70% of widows change their financial advisor within a year after their husband passing, let that sink in for a minute. It's scary as hell, isn't it? Right? Here's the thing. According to a report published by Barron's Magazine, women make up somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% of financial advisors. So in order for this industry to get better at serving female clients, we're going to need to help the 80% of financial advisors who happen to be men get a lot better at serving women investors. This is an amazing opportunity for you and your firm, by the way. Imagine how much your business would improve if you got better at serving a client base that represents half of the US population and is poised to dramatically increase their control of wealth in the coming years. Now, before we get to all that amazing stuff, please make sure you take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a guest or a topic for the show, reach on out, podcast@trulytics.com, or hit us up on the socials. We're active on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and, of course, YouTube, and we would love to hear from you. Okay, let's get to the conversation with Lacy Garcia. Well, Lacy Garcia from Willow, welcome to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's so wonderful to see you this morning.
Mike, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I am thrilled to have you. So one of the reasons why we want to have you on this show, not only because you're awesome and Willow's doing some fantastic stuff, is the fact that there's this tremendous opportunity. We've talked about these types of things on this show before, in that, women investors are frankly an underserved market. And, we can look to studies by people like McKinsey, right? Where, they're looking at an unprecedented shift in assets to women investors. And in fact, in their analysis in a recent study they did, they predict that women are expected to control a huge chunk of the $30 trillion that's in motion that's currently in the hands of baby boomers. And so while that kind of money in motion is exciting to report, it also highlights a few kind of alarm bells as well in that report, right? It's something around the 70% of widows switch wealth management providers, so switch financial advisors after their spouse passes away. And that's just like mind-boggling. So if you're a financial advisor and you're watching this and you're like, hey, listen, I've got women clients, well, you're going to want to pay attention here because 70% of them might change if their husband passes. So I want to dive into this because to me, these types of conversations are all about opportunity. Right? If we have the opportunity to serve segments of the market that aren't currently being served, there's a startup term called blue ocean, right? Like this, nobody is serving this part of the market. Go get it, right? So let's dive right in. Talk about Willow, like the kind of the founding story of Willow, if you will, kind of the origin story, I guess. And then let's dive into this opportunity as you see it.
Mike, thank you. So this is obviously one of my favorite conversations to have because at Willow, we're incredibly passionate about not only serving women investors better, but really helping financial advisors to actually retain and to grow their relationships and take advantage of this tremendous wealth opportunity, growth opportunity. I think oftentimes we come out of the scare tactic with approach. And so I will share some more stats to get folks to hopefully pay attention. But
please do.
Really, there's a real positive story here.
Yeah.
In addition to that, 70% of widows switching advisors really within 1 year of becoming widowed, but also divorcees, it's about 80%. And 85% of women who are looking for advisors can't find advisors that they can connect with. So there's some really, women are being underserved. About 73% of women report that they're being underserved by financial services. And what this equates to is actually about, I think it's an estimated $782 billion opportunity.
Wow.
where of investable assets that are not actually being invested as a result. So this is really the origin story of Willow. It's my personal story from a professional standpoint, and also a personal standpoint, was that I was an advisor. I was a private banker, and I was not somebody who had a direct path to that. I came in from a background in education and coaching, and then I came in on the marketing side. I was the chief marketing officer, and effectively became a banker because of my relationship skills and my ability to connect with primarily women clients, the widows, the divorcees, the single women. And part of that was because I am a woman, and we know that women tend to be about 5 times more likely to want to work with a woman investor, but was really about integrating kind of coaching and being able to really connect with these women on a human level, right? And helping to understand what was really going on in their lives, and what it was, not just what their goals were from a financial standpoint, but really their life kind of challenges and goals and who they were, and really listening. But, I'm also the longstanding client of a male financial advisor who I have a tremendous relationship with, and he is fantastic. And I feel that way about so many other male advisors. I want to actually help them to be able to retain and to grow relationships. We work with both men and women advisors. In fact, my co-founders at Willow are men, and we're incredibly passionate about helping women to get the better service, but also this is such a huge opportunity. In addition, in that McKinsey study, I think the other stats that were mentioned were just if firms are able to retain their female baby boomer clients, they could see as high as 1/3 higher revenue growth, and firms that are able to retain and kind of grow relationships with younger female clients will see 4 times faster revenue growth. So it's huge from an economic standpoint, but it's also kind of a win-win-win from a societal impact as well.
I love it. I love it. There's so many awesome things that you just mentioned there that I want to we could just have a whole podcast on some of the concepts you just brought up. Like one of them was, you mentioned that 50% of women, I think it was a number, 80% of women change advisors after divorce. And that kind of makes sense, right? Like, hey, this was our married financial advisor, and now I'm switching. And that could be a scary thing. If you're a financial advisor, hey, think of all your clients that are married. Probably most are, but guess what? 50% of marriages end in divorce. I think that's the statistic. So half of those, you might lose 80% of the ones if that end. That's a little nervous. And I know you mentioned you don't want to talk only about the negatives there, but sometimes I find you got to also talk about the defensive strategy. Like this makes sense for your current business, right? This isn't just a scenario where, hey, let's talk about this from a growth perspective. It's also like retaining clients is important. You want to make sure you keep them on board, right? So if you have a leaky bucket, you got a problem there. So make sure you pay attention to this podcast. I also love the fact that you talked about your advisor is a man, and men obviously already do serve women clients, and vice versa. Women can serve men as a financial advisor. So one of the favorite things I want to talk about here is how do we help the average financial advisor better serve women, right? So this is something, it's kind of a growth opportunity for them, right? To kind of stretch it out, because most financial advisors are men in their 50s and 60s. Yeah. And while we certainly do need a large infusion of women into this industry, that's going to take a lot of time, right? I've spoken at a lot of different advisory conferences, and it's like 90% dudes out there, right? Looking back at me from so even if also we flipped a switch and there was like, hey, 150,000 new financial advisors, they're all women. It's still going to take a little bit of time, right? And the men aren't going to evaporate. We don't want them to. This isn't about like, men, you all suck, get out of here type of conversation, right? So how do we help middle-aged dudes better serve women? What are some of the things that you talk about there with Willow and you help male financial advisors with?
No, that's a great question. And I realize in part I tell a little bit of a personal story and then, specifically what we do is I mentioned that I was a client, but I was also a client who navigated a lot of the life journeys that we hear where assets change hands, right? These transitions, moments in time. So I personally navigated everything from fertility challenges to becoming the sole provider and then getting divorced and single parenting, co-parenting, having a mother with cancer. And while I had a really great relationship with my male financial advisor, I didn't actually talk to him about any of this. And while I was somebody who was coming from a financial background, I still needed like life guidance and support that was very connected to my finances as I was kind of understanding and making financial decisions. And I actually ended up getting a coach, and that's sort of the basis of the Willow model and how we support advisors through our Willow Financial Life Coaching Network. But kind of to directly answer your question, how can we help men to do a better job? For starters, if you're listening to this podcast, you've already taken the first step, right? If you're forward thinking, becoming a modern advisor is really understanding the fact that the clients of today / really tomorrow, they're not just your golfing buddies, right? Yep. They're the wives because they're outliving their husbands, an average of 16 years. And they're the daughters who are taking over the business, and they're the single women who either got divorced or who aren't getting married, but are becoming the CEO of companies. And they've got different life needs, right? And there's just, women obviously are not just one category. All women are unique. However, they do share some commonalities as we look at kind of different groups of women, whether they be a breadwinner or a non-financial spouse. Or a single run household. There obviously are differences with each one of those categories. However, what they kind of need is advice that's not just advice, but your financial advice, but the guidance that's really specific to their life journeys. And they're craving and really seeking that personal kind of connection and somebody who they feel like is understanding them, is empowering them, is not just telling them what to do, but is helping them to make better decisions. And so we start with helping on the practice management side, I'm just kind of helping to understand what the market opportunity is, really get to know each one of these different types of women clients, right? And what her concerns and her needs may be. And then also some things that maybe you're doing that you don't realize you're doing. I mean, I know so many well-intentioned, so many really great advisors who are incredibly well-intentioned, but who come to me and say, I have tried time and time again to build a relationship with the wife of my client, and she's just not engaging. And I invite her to the meetings, and I just don't understand. But turns out that maybe he's not actually looking at her or or asking her questions. And we hear these stories and we're like, how could that really happen? But they happen all the time. And they happen, quite frankly, with great advisors who are great fiduciaries who do care, but there's just having that best intentions doesn't always mean the best execution,
Well, one thing you just mentioned there that is worth considering adjusting your mindset and the language is, it's not the wife of your client. She is your client. They are a couple. Yes. They are a pair. They are a team in that relationship, right? And so part of the reason why we likely see 70% of women change advisors after death, so when they become a widow, is because they never felt like they were your client. They felt like they were the wife of your client, right? That they were somehow a dependent level, kind of like you were one of the members of the financial plan, but you're not part of the actual plan.
You hit it. That's exactly it.
There's so much to, let's talk about some of the things that, if you don't mind, like some of the things, and I don't want you to give away your secret sauce. I'm sure some of this is in your coaching too. And if you want to just tell me, Mike, no, we're cutting this out. But what are some of the unique needs that, women have that the average advisor might not be thinking about in terms of the way that they want to be interacted with their financial advisor?
So women are, when you speak about financial goals, they sort of want to think about them in terms of their life goals, right? Okay. More so. And some of the unique needs that they might have are, if they have children, they want you to kind of understand that they have children and that they need to be thinking about their child's education or how they want to be transitioning assets to them and how they should be having conversations with them and how they should be supporting their aging parents. Also, I think if they're running a business and on the career side, there's a lot of, if you don't ask questions, you don't necessarily know what they're doing, but there's a lot of ways in which advisors can be incredibly helpful to women entrepreneurs and also to women who are climbing the career ladder or taking time away and trying to think through like the financial implications of that, because we know so many women, one way in which women are different is they tend to be the caregivers and they tend to take time out of the workforce for raising children or caring for parents or a spouse. And obviously there's incredible implications not only on kind of their retirement funds, but there's other nuances there that they want you to kind of understand and ask them questions and really get to know them on that personal level. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a beginning. So it's a beginning by asking questions and listening, right? That's one. And it might sound, obviously that sounds like common sense. But what we see, and we work with advisors all the time, is that it's not common practice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I love that you talked about many women on their career track may take some time out for child raising, right? So they're going to have kids. They might decide I'm coming out of the workforce for a few years while my kids are little. And then once they get to school age, I'm going to, get back into the workforce. And I remember this one hit me like a lightning bolt. You ever have something just like sticks with you for like the rest of your life? I was watching like a 60 Minutes or one of those shows, and they were interviewing 4 or 5 executive level women who had taken breaks from the workforce for that day. And they were kind of commenting how like this weird standard of I didn't decay. I'm still really smart and I've got a Wharton education or a Harvard education, but they're having a hard time kind of re-entering the workforce. And one of the women said, listen, this notion of getting out of college and working for the next 50 years of your life and then, stop working and then dying 15 years later is a concept that only a man could invent, right? she was like, listen, why can't we take a break in our middle of, in our 30s or whatever for, 5 to 10 years and then get back into the workforce and still continue to crush it. And for many women, that is a reality. They will, like my wife, as an example, my son was born, she took a, maternity leave and so forth. And now her company came to her and said, what are we going to do to keep you? And she's like, well, I don't want to go back to the office. I want to work from home. And this is, 17 years ago. And they're like, okay, whatever it takes. And they just hooked her up so she could work from home and have that flexible workforce, work experience and be home with my son. But she would not have stayed with that company if they didn't offer that for her. Mm-hmm. And that was her decision, right? That was pretty interesting. And I suspect a lot of women do that. And your financial advisor can support that life choice, totally. Right? That life experience, right?
I mean, with great financial planning, it becomes a lot easier to do that, right? I mean, think about it with your younger female clients. If you're asking those questions and helping them to invest the right way, start early, it becomes financially not only viable, but much easier to do that, right? And so that's a great example of where you can play a role, right? By really kind of asking those questions about not just what she's looking for right now, but in the longer term planning, really thinking about it from what the unique needs of women might be over the course of their career and over the course of their lifetime.
That's right. I think it's such a smart conversation to have. You also mentioned and by the way, we also talked about this during our prep call, is like supporting female entrepreneurs. And this is a topic, as you know, it's like one of my passion points here is that, we need to support more women founders because, I've got a lot of friends in my life who are women founders of startups, who are investors, whether they're an angel investor or working in a VC environment. And I've heard the stories. I'm like, hey, listen, it's really hard to raise money as women. It's often hard to, obviously for all the challenges that in a regular career to be a woman as a founder. But a financial advisor can play a really important role here for women who are what we consider the classic startup entrepreneur, right? Who's going to be raising angel rounds and VC money and so forth, but also, just a traditional business, a woman who might want to start a restaurant or some other business that's not going to require venture capital, but it's going to be a startup nonetheless. What roles can the financial advisor play in helping and in supporting women entrepreneurs?
Well, this is one of my favorite topics
as an entrepreneur. Wow, it's a big surprise.
There's a tremendous opportunity where financial advisors can play a pivotal role here, right? So for starters, just looking at the face of entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship today is that 50 years ago, women couldn't even open their own credit card, and now 12.3 million businesses in the US alone are owned by women, and women are starting businesses in droves. The latest data was, I think, 1,891 businesses per day, and that's outdated data now. So we know, and it's not just, I could go through all the exciting statistics on the venture side and what we saw last year. It was a big, big year for women, with Whitney taking Bumble public and, Rent the Runway, first company to go public with a woman as a CEO, COO, and CFO, and over $25 billion in venture funding actually went to women-led businesses last year. But what's crazy is that actually even though that's the highest amount, the percentage going to women-led businesses has actually come down. Oh my gosh. And so hold on to that, because there's also a really growing trend of women, not, as you mentioned, women who are starting what we call solopreneurship businesses. Yeah. So the solopreneur, where they're starting, whether it's a marketing company or whatever the business is that they're starting from their home. And this is a growing trend, or a side hustle or sidepreneurial businesses that are still in their main career. And this, I think, in all these different types of entrepreneurship, whether that's the more traditional venture and private equity backed businesses, or you mentioned the restaurant, or this solo entrepreneurship, side entrepreneurship, that, as a financial advisor, you can play a huge role. No matter what the stage is. For starters, if she's thinking about getting started, helping her think through how much capital she needs to get started. But I think what's important is also, as an advisor, you are an entrepreneur yourself, right? Yeah. You are a proven kind of successful entrepreneur, and you've had your own experience. And so you can provide, how important it is to get that really kind of straightforward advice as you think through how much capital you need to raise, how you can efficiently run the business, how should you think about risk, and going after funding. That is a huge other opportunity where advisors can play a really big role, because advisors are really well networked, right? Yeah. You've got a Rolodex, incredible Rolodex. And that's one of the biggest challenges that these women face, is that they don't have that. If they have a great business idea, but they don't necessarily have the access to capital, right? Yeah. And they don't know how to get in, and we're talking about allyship, right? You can make introductions that will make all the world of difference. And you can also help her, you look at financials all the time, think through, is her pitch, is it compelling, right? Yeah. Is she presenting her business model the right way? Is she going to give an investor that FOMO that they need to jump in, right? That's the type of thing where you can be incredibly helpful. And we do a lot of work around this at Willow. And I know we do seminar and trainings and, one-on-one coaching for advisors, but we also put together a how-to guide, which is effectively a cheat sheet for advisors, but also a resource that you can give your women entrepreneurs of different funding sources, regardless of whether or not they're looking for venture funding or if they're looking for small business loans, funding resources, other kind of networks of women-focused kind of resources, and a lot of things that I'll just tell you, even though I've been part of successful venture-backed businesses before and have an institutionally backed company, I honestly would have been so grateful if I had received this from my wealth manager, because it's just amazing wealth of knowledge that is, and what anybody's running a business, they're so busy, but especially women who, don't have the huge support of the team, and they're doing this on their own. And maybe they're also juggling motherhood and partnership and caring for parents. I mean, there's just a really tremendous opportunity. And I'll say one more thing, sorry, because I've just kept
you
going.
go.
It's like I've been, no,
I love it.
really, I'm really looking at the fact that so much more money going to women, but at the same time, the percentage has gone down. Like the percentage historically going to women-led venture-backed businesses, I think was 2.6% in 2019, and it's now down to 2%. Like last year was, so it's really small, right?
Why do you think? So, this could be, again, its own show. And I've been involved in a few different conversations about this. Why do you think that is, by the way? Because, I can't imagine as a VC, I mean, maybe it is, maybe there is, gender bias, when somebody walks in to pitch. I just can't imagine if I was in that seat, if somebody came to pitch me, I would give 0 Fs about their gender, because it's like, listen, my job as a VC is to create X, right? 10X. I want to generate a return for my investors. And so if you come in and you've got an amazing business, I don't care what you look like, right? What your gender is. Why do you think there is such a disparity? And is it more men? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. What are your thoughts on that? What have you observed, I guess?
Yeah. So no, I think it is. It's not a simple answer. There are multiple factors at play here, right? I think that both conscious and unconscious bias definitely plays a role. But I also, going back to like, how do we look at this as an opportunity? I think that also women are not as well networked. They don't have like access to getting into these potential venture firms or family offices or angel investors. They just don't have as strong of networks, right? We're working on trying to buck that trend. But that's where I do think that there's such a huge opportunity and win-win-win for advisors, is that you are so well networked and you have all these resources. And these are folks that, quite frankly, you're helping, you can help to make introductions and support these women entrepreneurs. And it's not taking business away from you, right? It's actually kind of helping to grow the potential for success of your client, right? And obviously, as their assets grow, the opportunity for you really grows. So I like to focus on that real positive kind of opportunity here, because I think a lot of it does come down, to networks. And then also, obviously, there's not as many women who are VCs, right? That is a percentage is rising. And we see that also the performance rises with that. Those gender balanced teams outperform. But at the same time, there is also talk about the fact that women tend to be, we know women are maybe more conservative or a little bit more risk adverse. And there might be some unconscious bias at play there. But I think that I think that one of the biggest challenges really is the network effect and the allyship and the access to the right introductions. And also, like, women sometimes we don't project as much confidence, right? And that's one of the things too. It's like walking in the room and really like making it impossible for someone not to invest in your business, right? And that's another way too, as we talked about, where you can really kind of help to boost her confidence, but also thinking about how she's really positioning her business as an investment opportunity that you cannot miss out on.
I love some of that, advice and guidance there, because it is, as we're all like this, by the way, we all have our biases, and some of these biases are what we call positive selection bias, right? So somebody who walks in and looks like us and has a similar background to us, we are naturally kind of have an affinity and a connection there, right? People you went to college with, people you used to work with at your whatever XYZ company that you came up with. There's a natural connection. And that's one of the reasons why we have to work hard in a workplace to make the workplace diverse, because if you left your big co and you had a bunch of coworkers and you're starting your new company, you're probably going to recruit from this circle of folks that you just knew it. And it wasn't like you're implicitly like, hey, I'm not hiring women. Hey, I'm not bringing on people of color or whatever. You're not thinking evil thoughts. You're just thinking, these are people I know, and I've already had experience, and they, great, let's do this. And at a certain point in time, you have to go, hey, you know what we probably should start getting a little more serious about is let's get some diversity in here, diversity of gender, diversity of ethnicity and other background type things so that we can be a more vibrant company. And I think that's true on the investment side as well. You're 100% right. And opening the doors for people truly, truly helps. One thing that you mentioned the gig economy or solopreneurs and so forth. And there was a statistic I want to share, and I'll dig it up. I actually tried to look while we were talking. I couldn't find it. I'll put the overlay when we do this. NPR did a study like 3 or 4 years ago on the rise of the 1099 economy. And at the time, it was closing in on 30% of America's workforce are 1099 workers, no more W-2, right? And they're saying by 2030, we should at least hit 50% of American workers will be working on a 1099 relationship versus a W-2. And that has monster implications for our industry. I mean, think about it. Most of your business, if you're a financial advisor, is the result of a W-2 job. And I know that sounds crazy, but like people contributing to their 401k or 403b is where the money, just automatic contributions came from, company matches, and then they change job and a lump sum rollover counts in your business. So as you start to think about, a lot of these women looking to manage a 1099 career potentially, just as men would be, having a support system in place as a financial advisor for their entrepreneurial experience is really, really important to advising them on setting up a retirement plan, right? And planning for the dips when the consulting revenue dips for a little while and you go like 5 months without any income because you're looking for new clients, right? That actually happens for consultants. So anyway, I can go rant on that forever. Let's that's what we were just talking about. And it's an opportunity for financial advisors, a huge opportunity, right? Very much so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears to something that's really important for like the month we're in. We're recording this episode in the month of March, and March just happens to be Women's History Month. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about what are some key historical figures and milestones that for women that you feel are deserving of shining a spotlight on.
Yeah. So I think it's just really amazing to think that 50 years ago, women could not open credit cards in their own name, right? And today, and I know I mentioned this already, but today they own 12.3 million businesses in the US alone, right? Wow. And it stand to control $30 trillion in this intergenerational wealth transfer in the next decade. So I think that these milestones are huge, right? And at the same time, there are so many incredible women to acknowledge and to celebrate. I also think that it's a big opportunity to also look at the glass ceilings that still need to be shattered, right? And we've talked about some of those today, right? In terms of the fact that women are starting so many businesses, but at the same time, they don't have the same type of access to capital, and they're not being kind of supported the same way. I think that's really where I am focused most, is like, what can we do about it? Like, what? Because a lot of these conversations that we're having today, we've been having for years, right? Yeah. And I was speaking with an advisor, kind of client the other day, and was talking about everything. And he's like, Lacy, this has been the same case for 40 years, right? Yeah. He's like, everything you're saying to me is still the same. He's like, 40 years ago, like I had one woman on my team and I had one African-American on my team. And he's like, today, he's like, the statistics are still the same. Like something needs to be done about that. Like, thankfully, people are now really starting to try to do something about it. But I think that's, so it's always, and obviously this is the focus of this conversation, is like, how do we modernize, right? How do we become the advisor, the firm that's going to succeed in the future, right? And I think that that's so critical. And you talked about the diversity of teams and how important a role that plays. And I know, Mike, that a lot of the work that we do at Willow is, we get calls all the time from advisors who are in firms who are like, we need to hire women, right? We need more women. We need to diversify. And one of the challenges in the wealth management space is only 15 to 20% advisors are women, right? And but at the same time, as I think you've touched on, right, that there is the growth of this gig economy.
Yeah.
And what we've seen happen during the pandemic, where everybody was forced to work remotely and effectively work a hybrid or a flexible kind of schedule. We've seen that actually people can succeed doing that. And we also have seen that women have been wanting to do that for a long time. So a lot of women who have left, who were financial advisors, who were bankers, who were in the industry, had to leave kind of a full-time role to be able to support their families, right? But it doesn't make them any less relevant. In fact, it makes them actually have real life experience, which is what makes them actually better able to connect with the widows and the divorcing women and the mothers and the women who are going through fertility challenges, because guess what? They've been through that experience, right?
Yeah.
They have that personal kind of life journey experience. And so that's one of the things we're really passionate about. And what we're doing is, obviously we want to see there be more gender parity in the industry and to have more women who stay and who rise in the ranks. We have to take a lot of proactive measures, and I've got a lot of thoughts on how you could do that. Just alone, first of all, post those your job descriptions on LinkedIn. Don't just send them around to the network of everybody on your team who already looks the same, right? That's just like one little tidbit. But also our financial life coaching network is all kind of really experienced, primarily women who have the financial background, but who also have this diversity of real life experience, who can come and be part of your team.
Sure.
Who can coach you, but who can also help you to serve your clients, to bring in that personalized life journey guidance, which we hear more and more so that is what women are looking for and what they need, and what's been lacking with their relationship with their financial advisor or financial firm.
I love the fact you talked about like recruiting, bringing on more women onto the team, and you kind of connected it a little bit to, at least this is what I heard. My brain heard a connective tissue between, the rise of the gig economy. A lot of women who are, doing jobs in part because technology has enabled them to do these new jobs. Whereas before, they would have had to do it like my mom did when I was a kid. Like, she needed a job. She had to wait till my dad got home from work. So she would work nights at a Kmart, right? So it was like a lot. That was kind of the story for a lot of dual income families when I was a kid, was that, the mom would work at night and the dad would work during the day or something like that. And part of that was because just the way the infrastructure worked back then, right? That was the way it had to work in order to make a family work, I guess. So, but now, like, look, we're doing this. Like, you're in Boston, I'm in Austin, Texas. We are communicating live in person. There's the constraints are gone, right? And every computer you buy now has a camera and a microphone built in and connected to the internet. You can have all this type of conversation. There's no reason why you shouldn't be recruiting women advisors who could live anywhere and can work different hours, right? So their clients might be, hey, look, I need mom's hours, meaning like I'm not going to be at my desk at 9 o'clock. I'm getting my kids to school and so forth, but I might work in the evening after I get the kids to bed. And by the way, my clients don't mind when we're chatting at 9 o'clock at night and both having a glass of wine on screen or something like that. So it's really kind of changing the mindset and thinking about how you're going to build your business in the future.
And Mike, that's a big one. What you just hit on is that our coaches work flexible kind of off hours, right? They're available because a lot of women, if they're working and they're taking care of children, then they need an early morning or a late or in the evening or a weekend call, right? That's when it's the best time. So yes, everything you hit on is obviously being no longer being constrained geographically to a physical space. I mean, obviously, you look at advisors and licensing, you need to take care of all that, but that ability to connect virtually, it actually is something that when we first launched Willow, we had planned to be virtual, and it was prior to the pandemic. And everybody was like, a lot of advisors were looking at me like, my client doesn't want to meet with you on video, or like, what do you, and obviously we've seen, but I knew that worked actually better for like a lot of women, right? That was the way that they could fit in getting the guidance that they need. And I think if you look at all the data, we see that not only the hyper personalization, but the continuous kind of on demand service and the kind of the digital efficiencies that are being made are what is being demanded and looked for. And not only does it resonate with women, but I think more broadly, like as we move forward. And so to your point, like, I mean, there is this kind of not only the clients of today, and really the face of our clients tomorrow, we also have to serve them differently, right? And we all got forced into living that a bit during the pandemic, but there's a lot of these things that have happened that it's not going to be like going back to the way it was before. It's going to be kind of a hybrid moving forward.
Yeah. And by the way, it should be a hybrid, right? I mean, the war for talent is real, right? You want high quality people working on your team, and you shouldn't care where they live. You shouldn't care what they look like, what their gender is. And you should be flexible and say, like, hey, listen, this is what works better for this person, right? They don't, 9 to 5 is an arbitrary concept.
Yeah.
It just is. Somebody made that up at one point in time, right? That, hey, 9 to 5 is when we work here at the office. Well, your clients, they work 9 to 5. So do you want to only have office hours 9 to 5 and force them to stop working to generate the wealth that you manage so they can come visit you? No, that doesn't make any sense, right? Just be flexible, right? So, this all kind of like makes me think about the future, right? We've kind of just already touching on this a little bit. So, the future is going to be pretty fascinating, right? I mean, one amazing statistic that I just saw recently was that 60% of today's college students are women. Mm-hmm. Now, the story was in the New York Times, and it was kind of like raising alarm bells, like, what's wrong with young men? Why aren't they going to college? But I saw it a little differently, and so did my 17-year-old son. He's like, woohoo, 60. But like, see, again, my brain is always like, I see opportunity. I tend to be a positive thinker about the future. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a dramatic shift, right? Higher educated people tend to make more money. Higher educated people tend to wait longer to have children and start their families because they want to get their careers going and all this type of stuff. This has the potential to be a kind of a seismic shift for our economy and our society. What are some of the big shifts that you and your team at Willow are thinking about, and developments that you expect to be coming in the years, call it the next decade or so? What are you seeing, like, beyond the college thing? Like, what are you guys looking at?
Yes. So I think that, first of all, just women investors really are the future, right? It's happening now. It's happening now. And I think a lot of the things that what we're doing through providing life journey focused, hyper personalized guidance that's supportive and that's complementary really and synergistic to the work that a financial advisor is doing, and providing a diverse outsourced member of your team who's kind of part of your team and helping you to have that not only having a diverse team, but being able to bring in the right specialist who can help a client go through becoming newly widowed or fertility challenge or growing her business in a way that, there's no way, even if you're an incredibly talented person or you get a team, you're not going to be able to be everything to everybody, right? But the more that you can access a network of experts who can help you to be highly specialized, help you to bring a higher level of personalized guidance really in the life journey support to your clients, is going to be incredibly, it's going to be critical. Like, it's not just incredibly important, it's necessary, right? It's an imperative. And I think and how do you do that in a way that's actually viable and feasible? Like, if you just are like, I'm going to go and try to find, because I hear all the time, it's really hard to find women advisors, and we have to fix that longer term. But like, you can leverage a third party like Willow, who can bring in women coaches who can support you and your clients in a way that's really kind of cost effective and actually kind of helping to increase your efficiency and your product, not only your efficiency, your productivity, but also your profitability, right?
Yeah.
So I think that embracing the fact that the digital transformation has happened, right? Like it's just like, and people, 80%, I think, of all consumers, not only just women, they want kind of on-demand, digitally engaging guidance and tips. And women want content that's like bite-sized, but super kind of relevant and actionable, but also not 10-page printed reports. They want it to be specific to whatever challenge they're facing right now. And so, these are the types of things that we're obviously focused on delivering. We're focused on being able to provide this platform that can help financial advisors and firms as they look toward the future to become that firm or that kind of advisor who's going to succeed not only today, but succeed really in the future. And obviously, we're super excited about partnering with Truelytics, as you all are really transition for advisors and succession planning, and sort of how do you make sure as you're transforming your business that you're also transforming to ensure that you are growing relationships with the clients that are going to really future-proof your business and ensure that you are succeeding in the future.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up that you and the Willow team is part of the Truelytics partner program. And I agree with you. It's a hugely amazing fit, right? Again, you're focused on a lot of the things that many of the advisory firms that are using Truelytics are focused on, right? And it is this transition of their business, not only with their advisor population and maybe the ownership of the firm, but also as we grow, like the industry is transitioning, right? One of the things I want to make sure we do, because the whole point of that partner program is to help you with your business, right? Is to send you business for advisors to come work with you and firms to come work with Willow. What's it like to work with Willow? How does somebody get started? What's the process? Who should be looking to work with you? Lay it on us.
Thank you. So we work with advisors and firms really who are looking to do a better job of not only attracting, but retaining and growing relationships with women and with underrepresented investors. And we provide the practice management, kind of the training specifically to advisors so that you can really up-level how you are engaging and kind of going after growing business with these segments of the market. But also we have a content digital platform, but most importantly, we have a network of financial life coaches who can be brought in to provide that diverse team and specialty life journey support to your prospects and to your existing and future clients, right? Yeah. And we do it all in a way that's really that is not disruptive and there's no integration required. It is turnkey and easy, but at the same time, highly personalized. And we know that it's sort of resonating and really making a difference with women and groups who are in transition, like obviously widows and divorcees and entrepreneurs, as we spent a lot of time talking about today.
Fantastic. Well, the website is trustwillow.com, correct?
Yes, trustwillow.com. And folks can reach out even directly to me at Lacy@trustwillow.com or sales@trustwillow.com. And Perfect. We'd be thrilled to support your work.
Awesome.
And help you really ensure that you're that modern advisor, right? Who's taking advantage of the future.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure we get all that stuff linked up in the show notes for this episode of the show. Well, Lacy Garcia, it has been a magnificent time having you on the show. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. Really a pleasure.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It was fantastic to have you with us. Huge thanks to Lacy Garcia from Willow as well for joining us. I love the stuff that she brought to the table. Like, as an example, one of my favorite ones is, helping female entrepreneurs get opportunities to meet investors and other influential people in your network. That really costs you nothing to just kind of open the Rolodex, the old-fashioned Rolodex, as they would say, just like connect people, right? And that can help. And that rising tide lifts all boats. And by the way, when you introduce somebody to another person and that connection turns out to be a good connection, they always think of you more fondly. So you got some good stuff going on here. All right. As always, please do make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest for the show, hit us up, podcast@truelytics.com, or swing by the Truelytics website and use that little contact form there, or just click on Ian Carnell's face down on the right-hand corner of the screen. He loves hearing from you, okay? We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. See ya. Bye.